Most men don't lose power in big moments. They lose it every single day, quietly, without noticing. No one tells you, no one calls it out, no one explains why people start treating you differently. But it happens, and once it starts, it compounds. A little less respect, a little less attention, a little less weight in your words, until one day, you realize something changed. People interrupt you more. They don't take you seriously. They don't respond the same way anymore, and you don't even know why. Because the truth is, you didn't lose power in one moment. You gave it away, piece by piece, in small behaviors that felt normal, that felt harmless, that felt like just being yourself. But those small moments are exactly where the shift happens. A man says something and immediately explains it. He shares an opinion, then softens it. He feels tension and rushes to remove it. Not once, but constantly. And every time he does that, he sends a signal. A signal that says, "I'm not fully certain. I need this to be accepted. I'm adjusting to you." And people feel that instantly. Not logically, but instinctively. Because humans don't respond to what you say. They respond to what they feel from you. And if what they feel is hesitation, they don't trust your position. If what they feel is adjustment, they don't follow your lead. If what they feel is dependency, they don't respect your presence. That's the part most men miss. Power is not taken from you. It's given. Through behavior, through reactions, through the need to be accepted in the moment. And the more you give it away, the more people take it. Not aggressively, not intentionally, but naturally. Because people always move toward control and away from uncertainty. So when they feel they can influence you, they do. They test you more. They push a little further. They take your words a little less seriously, and slowly, your position drops. Not because you're weak, but because you made yourself easy to move. That's the real problem. Most men are not lacking power. They are leaking it, every day, in ways they don't even see. And until you see it, you can't stop it. And if you can't stop it, you'll keep losing, without ever knowing why. The problem is not that you're losing power. It's that you're giving it away, without realizing when it happens. Because it doesn't feel like weakness. It feels like normal behavior. You explain yourself, because you want to be clear. You react, because something feels off. You adjust, because you don't want tension, and in the moment, it all makes sense. But that's exactly why it's dangerous, because the behaviors that cost you power don't feel wrong. They feel justified. A man gets questioned, and he immediately starts explaining. Not because he has to, but because he feels the need to be understood. A man gets interrupted, and he lets it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because he doesn't want to create friction. A man feels silence, and fills it. Not because he has something important to say, but because he's uncomfortable with the space. And every one of those moments costs him, not instantly, but gradually. Because every unnecessary reaction sends a signal. It tells people, this moves me, this affects me, this controls my behavior. And once people see what moves you, they don't need to guess anymore. They know exactly where your leverage is. That's the part most men never understand. Power is not about what you do. It's about what controls you. If your behavior changes based on pressure, you're not in control. The pressure is. If your tone shifts depending on who you're talking to, you're not stable. You're adapting. And adaptation, when it comes from need, is visible. People can feel when you're trying to keep things smooth, when you're trying to avoid tension, when you're trying to be accepted. And the moment they feel that, they stop adjusting to you. You start adjusting to them. That's the shift. And once that shift happens, everything changes. Now you're reacting instead of leading. Now you're explaining instead of stating. Now you're following instead of holding position. And the worst part is, you don't notice it in real time, because it's happening in micro moments. Small adjustments, small reactions, small behaviors that seem insignificant, but repeat constantly. And repetition creates identity. So over time, you become the man who explains, the man who reacts, the man who adjusts. And once that identity is formed, people don't question it. They treat you accordingly, they interrupt more, they test more, they take you less seriously. Not because they're against you, but because you showed them there's no resistance. And where there's no resistance, there's no respect. That's how power is lost. Not in one big mistake, but in hundreds of small ones that feel completely normal while you're making them. At a deeper level, this isn't about behavior anymore, it's about awareness. Because the reason you keep giving away power is not because you're weak. It's because you don't see the exact moments when it happens. And if you don't see it, you can't stop it. That's the trap. Most men think power is something external, something you build, something you show, something you earn over time. But in reality, power is something you either maintain or lose in real time. In conversations, in reactions, in silence. And the moment you lose awareness, you start leaking it. A man gets challenged and answers too quickly. A man feels tension and tries to fix it immediately. A man senses disapproval and adjusts his behavior. None of these feel like mistakes, but they are, because they all come from the same place: loss of internal control. Not control over others, control over self. Because when you are fully in control, you don't rush, you don't react automatically. You don't adjust without reason, you choose. That's the difference. Most men don't choose, they respond. And response without awareness is reaction. Now here's where it becomes real. You don't give away power in what you say. You give it away in how you move. Your timing, your tone, your body language. The slight hesitation before you speak. The quick adjustment in your voice. The unnecessary explanation after a statement. These are micro signals, and people read them constantly. Even if they don't realize it consciously, they feel it. They feel when a man is certain. They feel when a man is unsure. They feel when a man is grounded, and when he's adjusting. And they respond accordingly. That's why two men can say the same thing, and get completely different reactions. One holds his position, the other gives it away mid-sentence. Now here's the key shift. You don't need to become louder. You don't need to become more dominant. You don't need to force respect. You need to become aware of when you're losing control. Because once you see it, everything changes. You notice when you're about to explain unnecessarily, and you stop. You notice when you're about to react instantly, and you pause. You notice when you're about to adjust for approval, and you hold your ground. And that pause is where power returns. Because now, you're not moving automatically. You're deciding. And decision is what creates control. That's the shift most men never make. They stay inside their patterns, inside their reactions, inside their need to respond. But the man who becomes aware steps outside of it. And once you step outside of it, you stop leaking power and start holding it. At the highest level, this is no longer about fixing behavior. It's about eliminating the source of the leak. Because once you see where you're giving away power, you realize something uncomfortable. You were never losing it. You were trading it for comfort, for approval, for smooth interactions, for avoiding tension in the moment. And that's why it keeps happening, because every time you feel pressure, You make a decision. Not consciously, but automatically. You either hold your position or you adjust to relieve discomfort. And most men choose relief. They explain to avoid being misunderstood. They react to avoid feeling disrespected. They adjust to avoid tension. And every time they do that, they get something small in return. A smoother interaction, less friction, temporary comfort. But they lose something bigger. Position. Because the moment your behavior is shaped by avoiding discomfort, you are no longer in control. The situation is. And once the situation controls you, so do the people inside it. That's the part most men never accept. Power is not about dominating others. It's about not being influenced by them. Not their tone, not their reactions, not their approval or disapproval. Because the moment any of those things change how you move, you've given them leverage. Now they don't need to force anything. They just need to apply pressure. And you'll adjust. That's how control works. Quietly. Without confrontation. Now here's the shift. The man who holds power doesn't try to control every interaction. He removes the need to. He doesn't need things to go his way. He doesn't need people to agree. He doesn't need to correct every perception. And because of that, he stays the same. In tension, in silence, in pressure, no rush, no adjustment, no unnecessary reaction. And that consistency closes the leak. Now there's nothing being given away, no signals of uncertainty, no signs of dependency. No visible need for the outcome. And when there's nothing to take, people stop taking. They stop testing as much. They stop pushing randomly. They start adjusting instead. Because now there is resistance. Not loud, not aggressive, but real. And real resistance creates respect. Now people think before they interrupt. They consider before they challenge. They measure their behavior around you, not because you demanded it, but because your presence requires it. That's how power is built. Not by adding more, but by stopping the loss. Because in the end, the man who gives away his power daily will always feel like he's trying to get it back. But the man who stops giving it away never has to chase it again. And once you reach that point, you don't need to prove anything. Because nothing is leaking, nothing is moving you, nothing is controlling you, and when nothing controls you, everything changes.